cachondeo because that is the.
I'll start right now. Well,
It's
welcome
great because you know
everyone.
that I.
Please.
Yeah, no, just I was say to thank you, Felipe, because you introduced me to Eduard Escoffet like so many years ago. You know, like
I'm the
In the
one.
19th century.
in the 19th century. You know, he said me, no, I knew someone in Barcelona, Martin, Eduard Escoffet. You have absolutely to meet him. And I searched Eduard, and I was like looking for him. I remember I see you and you made a performance in the. What is the name of that Gaudí house in
La Pedrera.
La Pedrera? Yeah, I remember. And Eduard was on his bike with like a suitcase in his body and with everything to make poetry and happiness in the world and by real, you know, like every minute like was, yeah, we have to go there and then we have to go there and we listen to that people and we like organizing things, and he organized the best festival of sound poetry in the world, and one of the first also to like real um, contribute and retribute to the artist, to the poet, like that he needs, you know, to want to pay well to the artist for a performance, to treat him like the best. What do you need? What kind of drug? What kind of mystery? What kind of and I remember one of his most wonderful invitations that he made to me. He invited me to make like a love manager. I remember in the festival of Ajo in Madrid, and
2009.
you know, and then so many histories and so many times, and with in a moment I went to Barcelona once a month, and Eduard come to Paris often. Then it becomes as a really friendship and a kind of part of me in a way, and deep admiration and full of joy that Eduard is here. Then
Yeah, I'm also
sorry,
very
Felipe, I
happy.
interrupted.
No, that's good.
No, please keep on. I mean, I love this introduction.
Yeah. Maybe I can ask you apologize for presenting you Martin Vaquero, but well, it's too late.
No, you made me happy, you know, and actually it was somehow the beginning of this extended cachondeo, this extended poetic funny network, which is actually Language is a Virus right now. So it's something. No, I really thank you. I mean, my life now is a chaos. It's a mess, but I really appreciate Martin Vaqueros.
Oh, it was great, and as for me, it's the beginning of something new. And meeting Eduard Escoffet at the same time, meet someone like different at the same time, so close to me, and to understand one of the first of understand really the importance of the sound poetry movement in the end of 20th century and the beginning of the 21, and giving good spaces to that exist by real, you know. And this year is great for Eduard because like he have 2 prizes in 1 year for the old prize that he didn't have all his life now in concentrated like recognizing of his work that is like
You're becoming
kind of
Sorry?
You're becoming trendy.
always.
Well, I think no one from well, I don't know, I'm too old to become trendy, but all prizes are welcome.
Yeah, but I wanted to add something to what Martin Vaquero said. When I knew you, Eduard, almost 20 years ago, when you were organizing the Sound Poetry Festival, Proposta, and I remember reading about you. You were too young to organize a festival. I remember that, but he's like a kid, but well, but also you put in your biography a poet and agitador cultural, like cultural agitator, something like that. And it was the first time that I read that occupation. But looking at it in perspective is very real, like agitating, like putting people together, like making people from different places meet to share a same place. to not fight between
enredar, no?
Yeah, enredar, exactly. Like
entrevescar, say the troubadour poets.
Exactly, like mingling people and all that, and it's great. And I think in a way, all of us like to write poetry or perform poetry. Some of us also like to write theoretical, critical writings. But there's also this dimension to organize events, put people together, share our interest with other people. So it's great, and as Martin says, this language is a viral spirit is very close to what you have done in Barcelona, to the Writers Forum, to the Foro de Escritores in Chile, and a lot of different activities like that. So it's great to have you here.
I'm very happy. You know that nowadays some people use this agitador cultural agitator, or I don't know.
It's like a Thermomix. Like
a Thermomix, cultural Thermomix. Because I was the first one to use it, because it was like, I'm not a culture manager or culture. I mean, it was organizer. I don't like it, so I tried. It's exactly what you say, and of course, it's nothing. The idea is not new, but it was the name was. I was the first one to use it, but nowadays some people use it as like to describe themselves. At the same time, when I was so young, we met Felipe when I was 20 or maybe 21. But I remember York came to Proposta Festival. I think it was in 2001 or 2002. We were very young, York. And but this idea came to me since the beginning, from all the great masters, all the sound poetry or experimental poetry masters, all the people from the 50s and 60s made the first networks. And this is something I think it's very important for sound poetry and let's say experimental poetry in a general with a general meaning, because we are not fighting against each other for success or glory or whatever, this kind of things that sometimes in the literature scene are important, but building up, setting up a network. I mean, collaborating, and especially collaborating, crossing all kind of borders or frontiers, borders, linguistic or national borders. And this, from the beginning, was very important to me because I started with this when I was 14 years old. So it was, from the beginning, it was like, wow, I love poetry, but I love this kind of poetry. And yes, the idea of network. Actually, we already began, so this is part of the.
Okay. Maybe later we can edit, Eduard. We can change everything if you want.
No, I mean that's fine. What should I say, Felipe? I mean, I should present a little bit of my work.
Yeah.
What do you want to?
What is like to show something of your work, and then we start the conversation.
Wow. Great.
But we can do it in whichever order you like. So.
Okay. If there's anyone who wants to ask a question or say anything or whatever, or just change subject, I mean, feel free all, because I'm not very, I don't know the word in English, but improvisation. Please feel free. About my work. Well, as I recently said, I started very young. When I was I started very young, and from the beginning, I was very, very, very interested in in sound poetry, performance poetry, visual poetry. Of course, at the beginning, when I was 15, 16 years old, I didn't know. I mean, I just knew few things, but I don't know why I was from the beginning very interested in this kind of things. This is why I also have a lot of records, publications, and stuff in my place, because I started very young. And at that time, especially in cities like Barcelona, it was very difficult to know about all these things. I mean, I was lucky because I found a group of poets in Barcelona who were experimenting a lot with not sound poetry but performance poetry. But it was very difficult to know what was going on in the rest of Europe, and especially the history, the history of sound poetry and experimental poetry in America and Europe from the 50s. So I started to collect a lot of things. For many years, I spent a lot of the most of my energy in organizing. For me, and this is something is an idea by Christian Ide Hintze. I think that organizing events, festival is a kind of is a way of doing poetry. Ide Hintze said it's infrastructural poetry, in the sense that you're connecting poets, ideas. I mean, it's not really a poem, but why not? And well, for me, all the festivals I organized. What is that name? Zoe? Christine Ide Hintze, you know? Yeah.
Can you write it?
Yeah, Christian Ide Hintze. Or Ide Hintze, sometimes just written. But yeah, he was a very, he died a few years, maybe 10 years ago, I don't know, or less. He was a poet from Vienna. Jörg Piringer knew him a lot, I guess. And he was the founder of the Schule für Dichtung, the School of Poetry. Yeah, well, it's a very interesting, and his sound poetry, I think it's quite interesting, very related to my work, because both we have this sense of rhythm, the connection between sound poetry and pop music in my work. I would say more like more connected to techno music, but more or less it's this idea of connecting popular music and sound poetry. Christian Ide Hintze, so the festivals. Maybe I can show you later some catalogs from Proposta Festival, but it was 20 years ago, so they are very, 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 very old. What else?
I have a little question about it, because I don't know, but maybe something we all of us here share. I mean, you usually don't study sound poetry or visual poetry at the university, right? I mean, some of us studied literature, for example, as a career. You studied philology, and but it is part of like it's very difficult to study these things. So for all of us, collecting books, inviting people, meeting people is a way of learning and researching also. I mean, it's probably the only way.
Yeah, because I mean, right now with internet, website and other things, it's very easy to collect theoretical text and all kind. Thanks, Jörg, for the link. It's amazing link about Ide Hintze. But back in the late 90s or even the beginning of 2000, it was very, very difficult. And it's still, I think, quite difficult because, you know, Felipe, I'm not very, I love, I mean, how to say, the activity, but not, I don't read a lot. I'm not a very theoretical person. So the best way for me to understand what sound poetry was, or to know a lot about all these things, was just organizing events. So I had the opportunity to see how Bernard Heitzig prepared his performance or whatever. No, it's I'm more related to action than to reading. But it's true. It's the best way to know about all these things. I would like to show you first. I will show you a few pieces. I don't want to perform them because I think it's not the best way for me if I don't have the right microphone and my connection, my sound connection, it's not the best one. So I wanted to share with you all a film and 3-4 sound pieces. The film is short. It's just 9 minutes, and it's one of the last things I did. It was done in between the 2019 and 2020. But first of all, a few things about my work. I don't have a big body of work. I mean, it's maybe I made in my whole life like 20 sound poems, not more. 25. No, I mean I'm a little bit lazy, especially because for me it's always very important to think about the rhythm, the sound, the meaning. Even if they are very, very simple, but it takes me a lot of time to think the exact architecture of the poem, because of course I'm always working with the idea of architecture. It's I love everything related to architecture, and I think poetry is also like a building. You have to build it up and put all the things together, and they make the meaning. And especially with sound poetry, I mean, some of my poems are just written poems. I can read them loud, that's fine. But specifically about sound poetry, I'm very interested, not like decorating a text. I mean, like read the text with some background sounds, or just repeating the same with another rhythm, but to create the meaning when you collect all the things together. I mean, separately, the sound, the text, all the soundtracks have no separated meaning. You have to put them all together, and then that's the poem. This idea of the complexity of the poem. I mean, sorry, my English it's like that, but I'm too old to.
It's great. It's wonderful. At the same time, I see some direct reference in between your like cultural agitator or extended cachondeo master with the poem that you're making now. You know, like kind of then density of strange things around, but in a real like powerful condensation of work. And that is really amazing. But bravo.
Yeah, actually, what we can start with the film. This it was made in Italy. It was recorded and shot the Matera in the south of Italy. Southern Italy, and it's you will see a flat version and a single channel version, but the original is it's virtual reality. It's 360 degrees, so the image is all around you. It's you can watch it with the Oculus or in a dome. And the sound, it's very simple. It's 12 voice tracks. It's a mess actually, and maybe it's the first time. Yeah, it's truly the first time I worked with singing and all kind of phonetic tricks. I mean, I'm always very interested. Of course, my poetic father is Bernard Heidsieck. Actually, you can see the Badus map here, and since then I've been very interested in working in sound poetry, but attached to the text, somehow breaking up the syntax. So trying to build up a sound syntax in which the words and the sentences can relate to each other in a different way. But in this film, you will now see it's the first time I work with all kind of sounds from my body. There's no effect. It's everything live recording with no filters, no effects, just the reverb from the original places. And yeah, the image, well, the director was Gianluca Abate from Italy, a great video maker. And yeah, the sound was mine, and the idea, and actually the acting, you will see. We won an award at the Zebra Poetry Film Festival last December or November. So I'm very glad because it's the first prize I ever got.
You deserve it.
Really? I love you, Joaquim. I don't know if I deserve it, but I was needing it somehow.
I told you I completely tripped on the video and the sound, and I think you really both did a great job. Absolutely, it was fantastic to watch, and I really loved it for many reasons. But anyway, just please go on with.
Merci beaucoup, mon ami. No, so maybe, yeah, please, I will silence my microphone. So let's
silence microphones.
And just one thing, you can watch it. Well, it's also on Vimeo. You can see it. See you in 9 minutes.
Okay.
Nati
3940
esposti
17
nati
4246
esposti
13
nati
3570
esposti
9
nati
4687
esposti
25
nati
5132
esposti
33
nati
4473
esposti
33
nati
4217
esposti
42
nati
5028
esposti
33
Nati.
3069.
Esposti.
30.
Nati.
4524.
Esposti.
66.
Nati.
5312.
Esposti.
134.
Nati.
4343.
Esposti.
211.
Nati.
4629. 235.
Nati.
4948. 328.
Nati.
4968.
Nati.
4960. 247. 4960.
Esposti.
247.
Dies que s'arronsen, dies que s'estiren, dies que s'arronsen, dies que s'estiren, dies que s'arronsen, dies que s'estiren, dies que s'arronsen, deserta, dies que s'estiren en bon estat, dies que s'arronsen, dies que s'estiren, 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 dies que s'arronsen. Plegués a Déu al capital que mon pensar fos mort i que passàs ma vida pagant per respirar. Dies que s'arronsen, dies que s'estiren, 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 dies que s'arronsen, dies que s'estiren. Plegués a Déu al capital que mon pensar fos mort i que passàs ma vida pagant per respirar. Dies que s'arronsen, dies que s'estiren, dies que s'arronsen, dies que s'estiren. Alçat només les mans i el pensament contingut en morada resistint en el plaer. L'última revolta, l'última trinxera. Desig com a dir, dits en el buit, desig com a definició, desig que respira el cos fins a la defunció. i el pensament, contingut en morada resistint en el plaer. L'última revolta, l'última trinxera, desig com a dir, dits en el buit, desig com a definició, desig que respira el cos fins a la defunció, desig com a dir, desig com a definició, desig que respira el cos fins a la defunció.
Well,
Bravo, Tia Verrina. Wey.
thank you. This was a stereo over like mono version, but there's a 5 channel version, and then the 360. Then the sound moves all around, and well, it's you can hear the voices from different places. Okay, yeah, it's Lelo's voice. The Italian numbers are by Lelo Voce. And there's another Italian voice, I think, with the second voice that says also the numbers and some sounds, and then the rest of the voices are by me. And it was recorded actually in Basilicata. The video and the sound were recorded there in Basilicata. It's a southern region in Italy. Is where John Giorno, do you know that film 9 Poems in Basilicata by John Giorno and Antonello Fareta? It was recorded there because actually John Giorno, his family, his grandfather, I think, came from this southern region, and it's very special. You can see a little bit in the video. It's very powerful and has a lot of caves and special places where the voice sounds. It's amazing. And the idea was I was asked or commissioned to work about the idea of identity. We were 5 poets from different places from Europe: Yolanda Castaño from Galicia, working in Galician; Aurelia Lassac in Occitan; and Nilson Muniz from Brazil, living in Portugal in Portuguese; and then Domenico Brancale in Italian, and me in Catalan. So all the the rest of the poets wrote like a very long poems, and I just wrote like well, what you can hear. It's just one poem divided in like 3 sections, and this is deals with the idea of identity and the body. The idea that the only true identity is your desire, you know, somehow the pleasure inside the body. This is from where the titles comes from, And this idea of, okay, the politics, capitalism, everything can work so hard on the body, can decide what we have to do, but inside the body, inside the borders of the skin, you are free, and it's the only place where no one can get in. So it's like the last battle. It's about the body, and this is the this the only thing we cannot give up or give away. And okay, this is about identity. So as you can hear, maybe there's here there's a work with a very simple text and some rhythms made with the text, and then a lot of other voices that make some other kind of frequencies, and that deal with the idea of getting in. And actually, it has, of course, a sexual meaning, because as you can see, you go first, you see the body, and then the face, and then just the hands. So it's kind of has a sexual meaning.
Fisting.
A poetry fisting. Let's call this way. Of course, I work a lot with hands when I perform, so it's something very, very, very important in my work. And what else I wanted to? This is one of my last pieces I wanted to share with you. Maybe one of my first sound poems. I started recording sound poetry around 98, 99, I don't remember. But this one is from 2001. And I would say it's the first sound poem I think, okay, I'm kind of finding my own voice in this scene of sound poetry. Well, let's listen to this track. And
what is the name of the track? What?
At Parlo. I will write it down. Ah, shit.
And then you make some installation of that poem for 6 cassettes at the same time.
This is another one, Villa Sacra. Maybe we can go.
After,
it's only 20 minutes. No, it's I can show you just.
We have all year now. We confined for a year for this program.
Well, I need to sleep and dream as well.
1 year late.
I'm going to share with you this at Parlo from 2001, and yeah, later I will explain you something if you have energy. Felipe, ¿me oyes? ¿Sí, no? Vale, si se oye el sonido, hazme también un a favor, ¿vale? Just to know.
Parlo at parlo at parlo at parlo at parlo 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 com qui parlo toca tot parlo sempre parlo toca no parlo cai quan parlo l'ombra si parlo parlo
causa l'ombra sota l'home d'ombra sento l'ombra i no te'n sento l'ombra sota
parlo
l'home d'arbre neixes ombra no sé com coneixes l'ombra sota l'arbre aigua en l'ombra seca en l'ombra clos en l'ombra es posa en l'ombra home en l'ombra la sequera ombra
parlo at parlo at parlo at parlo at parlo
et dic parlo et sento
parlo
et dic
parlo
et sento
parlo
tac tac toc tic tac tac toc tuc tac tac toc tic tac tac toc tuc
parlo 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 at parlo.
I was very young, but I still perform this poem. I just put the soundtrack, and I eat a newspaper with newspaper glasses. Maybe I'm sure some of you did it because it's performing a lot. This.
What about the dance by Joaquim? Is it part of the work?
Joaquim is in trance.
Actually, Joaquim, a question for you.
Yeah. What about your dance? What do you connection between dance and Eduard Escoffet sound poetry?
Well, everything is movement, right? So there is direction, a rhythm, then you can move.
Can you repeat it, please?
No. No, no, it's just movement.
Please send us something from what you smoke.
Ah, you saw us smoking. Okay. I have to smoke when you're there, Eduard, of course.
Yeah, please.
Eduard, we wait you for the next record of the collection.
Yeah, it will
months,
be
yeah.
next step. No, I just actually for me it's very important when people dance with my poems. I always say that I don't mind if people want to move their legs or their brain, but let's dance, because if I can dance, that's not my poetry, I would say. Actually, at that, it was in 2001. I remember in 99, 2000. I went for the first time to Berlin. Then I discovered the real techno scene. So somehow it was very important for me to bring all these worlds together: sound poetry, techno music, body, dance, and I don't know. And at some point, I remember about 2000, 2001, when I started organizing Proposta. I will show you the catalogs, this festival. So I remember that there were all the old masters, Bernard Heidsieck, Henri Chopin, Bob Cobbing, a lot of these big names, but and even younger generations. But for me, at some point, I was very interested in sound poetry, but I couldn't find the kind of sound poetry that would be our sound poetry, which is not the same. I mean, we cannot do the same as all the masters did in the 50s or 60s. So it's interesting. I can go back to it and enjoy it. But somehow I understood that sound poetry needed to make a movement forward. And it was then 2001, 2002 when I met for the first time York and James Chaton, Joaquim, Martin Baquero. I think you came a little bit later, but more or less. And it was for me like, wow. And now I can see with all the people you are here tonight that there were like a new generation of sound poets, and they were not copying the poetry from their masters. So, and of course with and James, it was like a huge connection, because I remember once I asked him, wow, you also connected techno music and sound poetry. And for him it was no, I came from Terry Riley and other minimalism, Steve Reich, and then from here it brought me to techno music, but it was not exactly the dance floor. But the dance floor and traveling in general and walking, it's like the three places where I compose, where I create my sound poetry. And this is why there's always like a somehow a musical rhythm. And nowadays I'm like breaking this a little bit, and working with more textures and so on. And for instance, the Villa Sacra piece, which is a piece, it's a very long piece, but I perform it as just a fragment. I think there's in PM. Let me look, but I think in PM there's a recording of that piece.
Yeah,
because I think it's better if I show you the piece instead of trying to explain it. Okay, yes. Felipe. Felipe.
Dígame.
Te paso el link y lo lanzas tú, que sabes más.
Eso.
Lo lanzo, okay. I'm sorry, but I'm not sure if I'm able to share my screen, and I'm sure Felipe Cassin, who teaches at the university, is very clever.
My home. Yeah, I'm at my home with a very lousy connection, but it's working yet. Let's see.
It was a way for me to make like a 5-channel piece, but with only 2 cassettes.
Then all of you connect your 5.1 system now, please.
No, I think it's a stereo video, but where it was in Festival PM in Santiago de Chile. Big festival. I enjoyed so much.
Organized by Federico Eichner, Martin Gavins, and Gonzalo Enriquez.
And Martin, Federico was here. So
yeah. They're here.
So
we are the same family, extended Cachondeo family.
Okay. Later, and Felipe just some fragment, not the whole video.
Y el siguiente es sobre uno de mis temas favoritos, un tema clásico en la poesía contemporánea, universal, que es urbanismo y decrecimiento, y con tecnología a punta de cassette. Requiere un poco de preparación, pero no falla. Después de ir con CD, con pendrives, con tal, es lo único que no me ha fallado nunca, los cassettes. Excepto cuando se terminan las pilas. No se asusten, pero es una versión corta, aunque no lo parezca, de una pieza más larga que dura 25 minutos. Se titula Vila Sacra, es una pieza para 5 pistas. 4 de ellas son anuncios de apartamentos, piso en venta, y el resto son cifras de población. De hecho, como muchas veces lo preguntan, ya lo respondo antes de empezar, son las poblaciones catalanas de más de 2.000 habitantes en orden decreciente, empezando por la capital, que es Barcelona, que es de donde yo vengo. Vila Sacra.
En venda per 398.000 euros al carrer de Ramon Muntaner número 1, Vila Sacra. Casa en venda per 375.000 euros a ras de Requesens. 2 habitacions, 91 metres quadrats, 3.461 euros al metre quadrat, 4.115 metres quadrats, habitatge ubicada per 2 al metre quadrat, de Barcelona, lluminós, entrada directament de la carrer amb un espai de 17 gran saló amb 300.000 euros a planta superior per una roda.
1.615.908 persones, més 253.782 persones, més 215.329 persones, més 206.245 persones, més 203.969 persones, més 137.536 persones, més 139.731 persones, més 119.780 persones, més 117.337 persones, més 107.770 persones, més 94.484 persones, més 85.180 persones, més 89.335 persones, més 76.274 persones, més 75.000 30.053 persones, més 79.927 persones, més 64.905 persones, més 62.899 persones, més 62.573 persones, més 60.572 persones, més 60.122 persones, més 54.493 persones, més 59.912 persones, més 46.586 persones, més 45.190 persones, més 42.809 persones, més 42.628 persones, més 39.107 persones, més 38.964 persones, més 38.164 persones, més 37.734 persones, més 37.364 persones, més 36.255 persones, més 35.734 persones, més 34.931 persones, més 33.223 persones, més 32.903 persones, més 32.750 persones, més 39.647 persones, més 30.956 persones, més 30.271 persones, més 28.763 persones, més 28.066 persones, més 27.645 persones, més 27.461 persones, més 27.070 persones, més 26.279 persones, més 26.169 persones, més 25.961 persones, més 26.754 persones, més 24.710 persones, més 24.325 persones, més 23.000 persones, més 22.939 persones, més 22.914 persones, més 22.626 persones, més 22.109 persones, més 22.606 persones, més 21.726 persones, més 21.451 persones, més 20.652 persones, més 20.505 persones, més 20.039 persones, més 19.463 persones, més 19.090 persones, més 18.615 persones, més 18.261 persones, més 18.225 persones, més 17.917 persones, més 17.766 persones, més 17.224 persones, més 17.072 persones, més 17.978 persones, més 17.586 persones, més 17.518 persones, més 17.341 persones, més 7.149 persones, més 7.102 persones, més 15.816 persones, més 15.365 persones, més 15.307 persones, més 15.058 persones, més 15.056 persones, més 14.800 persones, més 14.545 persones, més 14.449 persones, més 14.025 persones, més 13.916 persones, més 13.829 persones, més 13.809 persones, més 13.552 persones, més 13.628 persones, més 13.675 persones, més 13.645 persones, més 13.435 persones, més 13.371 persones, més 13.243 persones, més 12.986 persones, més 12.488 persones, més 11.909 persones, més 11.795 persones, més 11.730 persones, més 16.653 persones, més
Loft en venda per 2.400.000 euros a Figueres Centre. 300 metres quadrats, 8.000 euros al metre quadrat. Loft de disseny impressionant, ubicat a l'última planta d'una antiga fàbrica tèxtil de principis del segle XIX. Completament rehabilitat, conserva elements originals, disposa de 2 habitacions, la principal amb vestidor i bany tipus hammam, i 2 banys, luxe i qualitat.
Bueno. ¡Qué buena!
I didn't intend to put the whole video, but okay. This is well, it was the idea of accumulation. It's somehow related to Badut's poem. I guess you all know it. And this idea of repetition and the idea of how you can use sound poetry to find out, to go back to the origins of poetry. This idea of repetition, mantra, or litany. I mean, I don't know, this idea of the voice and the poem a little bit like something very related to the origins of poetry and this kind of community event that is poetry. And yeah, Zoe?
Yeah, no, really great to hear this work, and and thank you for sharing it. And I was thinking, I mean, it was interesting in the video that you showed earlier, the repetition actually being a way of sort of making a crowd, and that seems to be really important in your work. It's like you're hearing these voices, and we know it's all your voice, but you're surrounding yourself with this crowd of you, and but that also seems quite connected with with the dance floor. That's also the kind of rhythm actually is something communal, isn't it? Because it's finding a way for people to be together. But yeah, I was just interested in that idea of you being multiple. That seems to be really important in what you do.
Yeah, actually, it's fundamental. I think it's like the and because it's the ground of idea in sound poetry. I mean, before the tape recorder, sound poetry wasn't possible. I mean, it's a new stuff we are doing because we have machines that allow us to make something new, which is the repetition of the poet's voice, and that's. I mean, if you look at the origins of sound poetry, this idea is so powerful. How to manipulate, set up somehow, or just multiply your voice. And it was something new, and it's also funny for me when I create these crowds. What do you say? But it's only my voice. This idea of being multiple oneself, but at the same time, how to create like a surrounding world just with one voice. And well, this is but also the idea of the trance related to the dance floor. And there's also it's very important the work by Demetrios Stratos, which is not exactly sound poetry, but he was very related to sound poetry and experimentation on voice, and how to this idea of somehow making something new at the present in your time, but related with this universal idea of trance, of losing your mind with a voice. This is the idea, and machines allow us to make it very simple. With just one body, one voice, you can create a lot of layers. Mm-hmm. And actually, I'm trying to make pieces with cassettes, but for like 8 or 10 cassettes, and all around the space. So you have actually like a surround sound system, but made with all the, I mean, there's cheap machines, the cassette players, because I mean it's old and cheap technology, and I like to make it more like more organic or more human, because it's not like the perfect sound, but it makes this idea of surrounding and repetition and multiplying the voice, and that's what we are all. I mean, a lot of voices inside our body.
Yeah, great. And I mean, I suppose it's interesting. It's like how far that do you see that all the voices is inside you, or does it connect outwards?
Sorry again, please.
All the voices inside you. I mean, do you think about it like that? I mean, because I suppose that idea of like the multiplication of voice. I mean, is it something that connects out into a community? Because I mean, you were talking about was it the Eternal Network? You were talking about. Were you talking about Robert Filiu earlier?
No, we were talking about Robert Filiu. Yeah, it's the same. at the same time in the same energy. When we were talking about maybe Chopin, or I don't know, but yeah, this idea of the eternal network, or this international networks. For me, it's also the idea of using your own voice to make people forget your voice. I don't like my voice. This is it's a question, but I can work with my voice to make it at the end. When you listen to some of my pieces, it's just a lot of repetitions, so and a lot of different voices, different tracks, so you lose a little bit the idea of my voice. At least it's what I try to make. Okay, you listen a lot of voices, but you cannot recognize my own voice. I don't know, it's but of course it's this idea of community, of that's also very important. Maybe I was thinking I would show maybe one last piece, because you are all tired.
No, but more, Eduard, forever. 1 year late.
No. Well, this is wanted. No. Okay. Felipe. I send you a link.
Okay.
I'm sure it's very easy to make it from my own computer, but I trust you. This is a different kind of poem. ¿Qué tal, Gonzalo?
Perdón, no quise interrumpir.
No. Que, ¿qué tal? I lost my... Yeah, okay, this poem, it's a love poem. It's very, very old. I wrote it in maybe 98, but I'm still performing it because it's a repetition, and at some point before the poem ends, before the final verse, I repeat all the first sentences in it's an improvisation, so it's every time a different order. So I just work. I like to lose my mind a little bit, so it's just improvisation. The first sentences I remember, and faster until it breaks up. Felipe, when you want.
The next one is a love poem, un poem d'amour, un liebes Gedicht. I hope maybe it will make you dance and clap your hands or something like this. It's if you have the anthology of the festival, there's the translation into Romanian. It's in Catalan, it's quan et veig, quan no et veig. I'm going to read the first lines in English and then start the poem in Catalan. But it's very easy. I want to be with you and far away from you. This is love. Actually, I wrote it after a medieval poem, so it's a very old poem, love poem. When I see you, when I don't see you, when I see you now, when I don't see you now, when I see you body and body, when I don't see you body and body, when I see you the house, the weight, when I don't see you the house, the weight, when I see you and it rains, when I don't see you and it rains, when I see you the things you tell me, when I don't see you the things you tell me. Quan et veig ara, quan no et veig ara, quan et veig cos i cos, quan no et veig cos i cos, quan et veig tu, la casa, el pes, quan no et veig tu, la casa, el pes, quan et veig i plou, quan et veig i plou, quan et veig les coses que em dius, quan et veig les coses que em dius, quan et veig a fono el mot a la pedra a la porta, quan et veig a fono el mot a la pedra a la porta, quan et veig i quan no et veig, quan et veig i quan et veig, quan et veig, quan et veig i moro quan et veig, quan et veig, quan et veig i moro quan et veig, quan et veig fet i fet, quan no et veig res, quan et veig ara, quan no et veig ara, quan et veig i plou, quan et veig i plou, quan et veig tu, la casa, el pes, quan no et veig tu, la casa, el pes, quan et veig les coses que em dius, quan et veig les coses que em dius, quan et veig cos i cos, quan no et veig cos i cos, quan et veig a fono el mot a la pedra a la porta, quan et veig a fono el mot a la pedra a la porta, quan et veig i quan no et veig, quan no et veig i quan et veig, quan et veig tu, la casa, el pes, quan no et veig tu, la casa, el pes, quan et veig ara, quan no et veig ara, quan et veig i plou, quan et veig i plou, quan et veig i moro, quan et veig, quan et veig i moro, quan et veig, quan et veig i quan no et veig, quan et veig i quan et veig, quan et veig a fono el mot a la pedra a la porta, quan et veig a fono el mot a la pedra a la porta, quan et veig les coses que em dius, quan et veig les coses que em dius, quan et veig cos i cos, quan et veig cos i cos, quan et veig ara, quan no et veig ara, quan et veig a fono el mot a la pedra a la porta, quan et veig a fono el mot a la pedra a la porta, quan et veig les coses que em dius, quan et veig les coses que em dius, quan et veig ara, quan no et veig ara, quan et veig tu, la casa, el pes, quan no et veig tu, la casa, el pes, quan et veig i plou, quan et veig i plou, quan et veig cos i cos, quan no et veig cos i cos, quan et veig i quan no et veig, quan no et veig i quan et veig, quan et veig i plou, quan et veig i plou, quan et veig tu, la casa, el pes, quan no et veig tu, la casa, el pes, quan et veig i moro, quan et veig, quan et veig, quan et veig i moro, quan et veig ara, quan no et veig ara, quan et veig cos i cos, quan no et veig cos i cos, quan et veig les coses que em dius, quan et veig les coses que em dius, quan et veig i quan no et veig, quan et veig i quan et veig, quan et veig, quan et veig i moro, quan et veig, quan et veig, quan et veig i moro, quan et veig, quan et veig fet i fet, quan no et veig res, quan et veig aquesta llum dona voltes, quan et veig aquesta llum dona voltes, quan et veig i quan et veig clou la rosa.
Qué bonito.
A lot of repetition. I think all my poems are, in all my poems I repeat a sentence. Somehow it's something very...
No, but that's the idea of trance and kind of like you put the people in movement, in trance, in kind of different connection. And
Hey, Eduard.
Yeah.
Now I know what we're gonna do with the LP.
What?
Pure repetitions. Obsessive and stuff.
all your obsessions, trans obsessions.
Eduard?
Yes.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, please.
What is your understanding of verse?
Again, the question?
Verse. You said, I wrote this verse, the other verse. What is verse for you?
A line? No, I don't know. Well, a line in a general sense, because it can be somehow like also a rhythm or like a phrase, like a guitar phrase, or I don't know the name in English. But su pregunta es por la idea del verso, ¿no? I don't know. Somehow,
how does it fit within this whole voice structure of repetition?
Yeah, for me, well, I remember many years ago, I read a sentence. I think it's by Freud, which is repetition is a sign of death, because it makes you the rhythm, but at the same time, it's like when there's a repetition, it's you are somehow talking about the death or the idea of dying. And so for me, the verse is more. I always work more in a architectural way of building the poem. I don't know how to, because a verse it's just a column or I don't know the name in English. Well, and this idea of all the things you
Catalan, or how you say in Catalan? How do you say in Catalan?
Una viga, una para sostener un edificio.
Una estructura, un...
Sí, well, beam, yeah.
Beam.
Exactly. You have that. So the verse is the, for me, it's a little bit like this, like a beam you put together, and somehow I'm still very, very attached to the text. It's something. It's like I always feel like I'm a little bit at the border between real sound poetry or more abstract sound poetry and classical poetry. Somehow it's always a debate for me, a question about all my, except Bernard Heitzig, but all my references or masters deal with an abstract idea of sound poetry. And I don't know why I'm always very attached to the text, especially using this is another question, but something I learned from the Swedish text sound artists and sound poets as Paul Devray is that you can sound poetry can go beyond all kind of borders, and why not? You can use your own language, even if it's a very small language, Swedish or in my case Catalan, to make a poetry that can be understood beyond your own linguistic borders. And actually I perform more often outside of Catalonia than in Catalonia. So it's
and do you always, Eduard, start from a written page?
No. No. Usually an idea of sound or a rhythm or maybe a sentence that can work a little as some, and then but usually the text comes not at the end but in between. So I have like sometimes it's just the topic or the feeling I want to create, and then the rhythm, and then I don't know, and then of course when you record the poem, then happen all kind of things can happen.
So the text in a way, or the verse, is one more instrument in the end, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. When I work, I mean, if I'm talking about my sound poetry, yes, of course. Otherwise, sometimes I can read a poem and make some background sounds, but it's just another thing. But when I work on sound poetry, I mean it's the conjunction or the addition of all the things, and you cannot separate the different elements because they don't work separately. So it's,
and what other instruments do you use apart from your voice, the verse, the microphone? We've seen the Walkmans. What else? A looper?
Well, I have my own looper. It's a very simple one. It's the classical boss. It's very simple. But I don't know why, but I always like to keep it simple because I think there's people like Jorpinger or Joachim Montesi that can can deal with electronics and very complex devices. So I cannot make it better than these two guys and other great poets. So I always work with this idea. I can record everywhere because it's only my voice, and then I'm working more and more on this idea it comes from Demetrius Stratos and also from Paul Henri Chopin or François Dufresne. This idea of somehow, I mean, in poetry, poets usually work on the roots, try to find the roots of language, of their own language. And I think in sound poetry, we go a little bit beyond, and we try to understand experiment and to investigate on our our own voice. Sorry.
Eduard, and another thing, at the beginning, when you were explaining your background as a cultural agitator and organizer and someone who gathers people, you mentioned collaboration and gathering, etc. The performance we've seen are more like solo performances, like a solo performer. Do you on stage consider yourself a solo performer, or you also explore collaboration on stage?
Like Corsini, for example.
Yeah, so I've been playing in two bands, first with Bradin, and then now I'm a member of Barba Corsini. And then it's not, of course, not a solo project. And I work with musicians, so and I can experiment different things or bring sound poetry to electronic music, so we can work in a different way. And also I collaborated with very different people. I mean, dancers at the beginning, some musicians, other poets. In the last times I started, in the last years, I started to do voice improvisation. We recorded one, I remember, at Martin Baquero's house in Paris with my aunt. Yeah. And,
the same place here, in the same space-time.
Yes. And so I've been collaborating with a lot of people, but I'm still.
And you are always the voice in those collaborations.
Yes, this is the only thing I have. I mean, I don't know any instrument, a little bit guitar, but that's all. And no, my focus, my obsession is voice, and trying to find out elements, sounds that I don't know that are inside me. And
do you sing also?
I'm about to release an album by Barba Corsini, and I sing a little bit, but in my way.
Excellent.
But yes.
I'd love to sing. I will learn how to sing. I will hire a teacher. Is anyone here a teacher, a singing teacher?
I have two very good teachers here in Barcelona.
Really?
Yes.
Really? Okay, let's go there.
And one is an opera singer, but it's very interesting because he works mainly with breathing and so on. I remember Martin Baquero told about that meeting in Madrid in 2009, I think, and Joan La Barbara was there, and it's very interesting for because her point of view it's quite different from ours.
So Joan La Barbara.
How do you see the difference? What is the difference?
Well, because of course there's a question about technique, I would say. I mean, I'm very interested in learning like the technical questions about the voice, but at the same time, I want to keep it wild, sauvage somehow, because this is also the essence, the base of sound poetry. We are not singers. We are not voice performers.
We are bad musicians.
Sorry?
We are only bad musicians.
Yeah, somehow. And what's the difference between vocal music and sound poetry? Well, we made
no, that is interesting in Nietzsche when he talked, about Wagner, and he criticized Wagner when he said that Wagner, you're not like surprising no one, like you're like not connected with that I lost the idea that I want to say you that, but just how sorry. Someone I'm talking about that idea of Nietzsche, you know, like to.
In the meanwhile, sorry, Martin, I was remember that in this
No se escucha, Fede.
We don't hear you well, Fede. Speak louder or closer to the microphone.
Go on.
Ahora te escuchamos.
Te escuchamos despacito.
Despacito.
Ahí sí.
Eduard.
Dale.
Yeah, I was remembering that Cecilia Vicuña here in language said that she didn't want to excel. She didn't seek for excellence in her voice. About this difference with the singers, with the professional singers or experimental singers, and there's a difference, very important that she made, I think, in consonance with what you are saying about maybe some distance that we have with people like La Barbara, which, I mean, they are amazing, of course, no? And it's sound poetry also in some sense, but it's another school, of course, and maybe another concerning about voice.
Yeah, this idea about excellence, I think it's quite important. Yeah. I don't know. York, are you there?
Yes.
We want to hear your opinion. Well, about the voice, because you also work, of course, you work with no text, just with letters, I would say. And but somehow I feel your work very close to mine, because you deal also with music, with in your case with abstraction, but this idea of rhythm. I don't know if which relation you have with the music and this.
Yeah, it's for me it's, I don't know, probably I started doing this sound poetry thing because I always wanted to sing, but I never felt I could really do it like in a proper way. So I decided to use the voice in a different way, and that's what distinguishes us, or most of us, from singers, because we find different ways to use the voice, and not, for example, I don't use melody that much, and I'm not really very good at finding the right pitch and things like that. So I don't care. I decided not to care, because I also didn't want to invest that much time, because I always felt that becoming like, I don't know, especially I come from Vienna, where classical tradition is so important, and that's the whole thing. People like, I don't know, almost kill themselves for achieving something that I'm not really interested in, and that's maybe also the reason why I decided not to do it. And then I discovered that there was a whole tradition, and was fascinated by that. And yeah, that's I don't know if that answered the question, but
perfectly.
Yeah.
Eduard?
Yes.
Speaking not about intellectual or rational elements in your work, but rather feeling elements. How do you feel when you speak out, when you are there repeating and expelling these sounds? What do you feel?
Peace. It's the only time in my life when, okay, you can stop the war right now. I don't know, it's
I love you, man.
Because I I love, actually, when the first time, the last poem, I hate to talk about myself, so if you're tired, we can talk about all things.
About yourself, so don't worry.
We would like to hear about you.
This will be the only interesting part.
Okay, but the first I remember, like maybe more than 15 years ago, when I performed the last piece, the last poem. It was Quan et veig, when I see you, when I don't see you. And for the first time, I felt like, fuck, I don't know the name in English, but this idea when you are out, you are out of your mind, like you can see you from above, and there's only a voice machine working, but your mind is out of that mechanical movement. There's exact name in English, but I don't know. But this idea, it came, I mean, it was just by accident, but then I realized the power of working with voice, and it's just air going inside your body, in and out, and this air creates something, and it's, for me, it's when I perform, it's I feel peace. Then when I have to end the poem, it's like shit. But
and what do you think, Eduard, do you feel?
I don't really care, because sometimes when I see videos, I mean, you can see the Chile video, that the audience is Sia, Rene is very interested, but some people, I really don't mind if people get in or not. Of course, I prefer to be loved than hated, but really don't care. Of course, I know we all do things that are not for a big crowd, a big amount of people, but it's the same. I remember when I first saw visual poetry, or kind of experimental poetry, or sound poetry, the first time, it was like, wow, yeah, that's it. So, and I was the only one interested in these kind of things when I was 15, 16. I mean, in my
Gerard Artayo and
yeah, but I mean, from my closer friends, or at the school, or even at the university. So it took me a while to know Gerard Artayo, who is here, and other people.
We was 18 already, 18, 19.
Yeah. Wow, but I was very old. No, but I mean, this idea of just when you see something, and it's like, it's this what I like, and we are not a big amount of people, but okay, but we are happy few. I don't know, but
and do you sometimes change? Do you sometimes change your performance according to the reactions of the audience, or some, or do you feel connected in some way with the audience sometimes?
Only when they dance, but no. I usually, I can change a lot my performances, but according to the space or the venue, the festival I'm taking part in. I mean, if it's a music festival, I do different things. If it's like a more classical poetry festival, then I combine some poetry with other kind of more classical text. And of course, it's different when I'm performing in South Africa than when I'm performing in Barcelona, because of course the use of language it's very different. But once I'm there, like I remember once in South Africa, in Durban, in Poetry Africa Festival, I was reading a poem. I think it was Quan et veig, this repetition, and I was out of my mind. This outer body experience. Thank you, Montenegro Fish. And suddenly I realized that people were shouting, and I thought, okay, maybe really they don't like the poem and are shouting because they want to. And so I stopped a little bit, and I realized that the people were singing. I mean, were repeating my sentences. They did. It was Catalan, but the sound, and it was amazing when there were all the people like dancing and screaming together with the poem. I was, wow, that's sound poetry can be.
One last question, if you don't mind. And what is the place of the philologist? Is that the word? The philologist? You studied philology at the university in your work, in your performative artistic work.
I think this idea of because somehow I'm very I'm very classical. I mean, and it comes from my university studies. Actually, I'm corrector, so I can correct text in Catalan, Spanish at a very difficult level, but especially for me, the idea of tradition. I mean, when people say, "Okay, you're very modern, you're avant-garde," and I always think, "Come on, motherfucker, that's poetry." What is not poetry, what is modern, is this idea of the book of poetry, the book on the page, this idea of the poetry talking about your own feelings, your own life, this idea of the idea of oneself. I mean, the poetry, dealing with the poet's life. Bye, Chris. Okay, and so I always. Yeah, I think that somehow I'm doing like classical poetry. I mean, I don't, because I talk about the classical subjects, and I deal with very simple elements that come from the origin of poetry. So I never feel like I'm a new thing or doing changing the poetry, but somehow doing something very normal for the tradition of European poetry, I would say.
What is the origin of poetry?
The origin of poetry, nobody knows. I mean, but of course the original elements, I mean, well, according to Paul Zumthor and other people, it's this idea of first of all group of people, the idea of the voice, repetition, and the idea of bringing people to one state of mind to another. I mean, that would be the poetry, and then of course comes later like the epic poetry, all kind of poetry with rhyme, the verse, and the classical structure. But it comes also for this idea how to repeat and how to learn by memory a text. So there's like the strategies that later became the tradition. But the origin is something we don't know, but we can imagine. And then it's something interesting for me.
Eduard.
Because, yes.
¿Cómo estás?
Yeah.
Muy bien.
Good to see you. Remember Helio Gobal?
90. Actually,
I think 99.
99, yeah. I think I have some. Well, I will send you, because I think I have some pictures of you performing there.
Oh my God! Okay, well, I don't know if I want to see that, but it was fantastic. But I like you've talked a few times about how you're layering and your repetition of voices and everything. And I thought of two things. One, that in a way, all poets or all creators, like the voice that we make in the world is our own voice anyway. So we hear our world that we make to be in it, you know? So there's that kind of like, it's a very gentle anarchy, to kind of create the world that you're in by making it. So I get that a lot from the work that you showed us. But also you spoke a few times about losing yourself, hiding the sense of obscuring yourself from the voice. And I wonder if you could talk about where you see yourself in your work, because in a lot of us, what we do in this group especially is about going to another place, another trance state. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about where you see yourself in your work, and does that change? Like in the video and actually in all the work that you showed, you are presenting a world of yourself just a little bit off with the trance. So there's a question of self and object.
Good question. I would say that from a point of view, I like being a cultural agitator. So when I'm on stage, I want to hide a little bit from the scene, because I'm like, I want to make things happen. I don't know. It's like, okay, this is I'm giving away my voice, but it's something that it's not about me. I've been, from the other side, I've been always very skeptical, or I would say I don't like the idea of talking about myself, because especially this idea from the again from this romantic idea from the 19th century of the poet talking about his world, his feelings, his pain, his so on. But and this is why I always think, and it's a classical conception, that poetry has to, of course, comes from your life, but somehow you need to make something useful for other people. And it's not about talking about yourself and so on. But maybe in the last works, since I'm working more with phonetic, all kind of sounds from my voice, not only text or words, maybe I'm more free in that sense. So I feel like in the last pieces, my body itself is there, and maybe it's this idea of the I, the oneself. I mean, Chopin, I think, once wrote about it. So the Romantic poets wanted to know about themselves, their own lives, and I put the microphone inside my body, because it's the only self it can speak honestly or frankly about oneself. But
maybe it's also a way of
answer to your question.
No, it's also like a way of as our job as a poet is to present to the world that the audience has to experience. So I'm not going to tell you about my life. You have your life. So the experience of where we're in as an audience and as a poet, that's the connection. And then it's on you. The possibility to create your own world is onto the audience.
Yeah, and at the same point, it's always for me a good question, because it's exactly what you say. In somehow, it's like my life. It's not more important than your life, but at the same time, since all my work is very political, or not because it talks about politics, but because I try to make things in one way and not in another. So I try to well, I mean, there's always a political vision on everything I do, organizing festivals or producing my own work. And it also means that at some point for me, it's important to take or to have a statement, or to defend, or to go for things or against few things. So it's also like it's always a balance. It's a strange balance between this idea of not talking about myself, but at the same time I'm a person. I'm a concrete person. I'm very related to many things. Of course, even my own sexuality brings me to like a queer space where also defend a different way of approaching the many social blah, blah, blah. Wow, I'm a little bit lost, but I don't know how. I mean, my English my brain doesn't fit in my English, I would say. But it's this idea of how to make the balance between this idea of the poet as an anonymous person, but at the same time, I'm a real person who needs to make some statements, or to take some positions about few things. And I'm even for instance, Cosendines and another piece. Last week I got a prize for a poem. It will be like a poster, a big poster. It's like a concrete visual poem, and it also deals about sexuality and identity, and how to bring like the closed conceptions about sexuality and so on. So it's I'm trying to work more and more in some subjects I think important, also about ecology and things like this. So, but it's always the balance.
Eduardo, I have a question regarding your regarding your connection of the voice with the tape recorder, because when I was listening to it, it didn't seem that you are just kind of. It seemed that as if your voice and your technique of the repetition and of the performance was somehow appropriative or reminding someone of the mechanics of the tape recorder. So as if you not only use the tape recorders, but also in the other performances was kind of reconstructing that experience of rewinding and doing it once again, and not stopping at the exact moment, but sometimes changing it too much, sometimes rewinding it maybe a little bit more, etc., etc. So I was interested in this kind of connection between the mechanical device and your voice, especially the tape recorders. And I quite like the tape recording. I consider quite interesting nowadays, because quite many alternative labels nowadays for the last 5 years, they are releasing their recordings, like all the kind of alternative musicians that I know, they all the time have tapes. And it's a technology that not many people have the player, but they just have it as a fetish. Like, we have these tapes that we cannot play, just as a little fetishes that we keep on the shelves. So that the way it also seems kind of like a post-digital kind of like a status to have those tapes but play them, unlike other people that just have them on the shelves. So what is this kind of like obsession with the tape recorders that you said you are now doing even more?
Well, I always loved tape recorders and cassettes, so I've been using. I mean, I never stopped using tapes, but at some point, I remember once it was Arrigo Lora Totino in 2001. I remember in one festival, when it was Arrigo Lora Totino, Bernard Teitzik, Julien Blaine, a lot of people. But Arrigo Lora Totino told me, you shouldn't be so mechanical at your rhythm. And then I started working with the cassettes, because if you work with the computer, you can make it perfect. But if you work with cassettes, never. I mean, it's even the batteries, if they're low or fully charged, cassettes work in a different speed. So I like this idea that my voice can be very ciao Edwin. And sorry, this idea of creating my voice can be very precise, but cassettes never. So I like to work with the when the mechanical elements are not so perfect. I don't know if I explain the idea, but express the idea, but it's a little bit this. Actually, I love at the end of the pieces, because usually I use 5 minutes long cassettes. So when the piece ends, the cassettes, there's a auto stop and they make that sound. But yes, I don't know. I love this kind of these old machines that are perfect because never fail, but at the same time are not digital, so they are not perfect. It's not there's a lot of noise, but it's perfect because it makes a lot of quality. And yeah, it's true that in the last years a lot of people is releasing cassettes, and maybe I'm the only one in my neighborhood who has a lot of tape players. I mean, maybe more than 20, but only 15 work. It's true. But and it's also very, you can see the sound. I mean, you can see the object, and that's something I like, because then you can bring it to the performance part of the poem. You can, if you use the cassettes and the way you use them. But yes, this idea of the mechanical thing. So it's not digital; it's still mechanical, and maybe we're the last ones that are dealing with it.
Mechanical.
Sí. So that was more or less.
Just want to say to you that I was always a big fan of your work and big inspiration. I don't really have a question, but just
wow,
as you said,
but it makes me very happy what you say.
No,
you are loved, Eduard.
I can just feel it in the beginning when I was starting to get interested into sound poetry. It was the same thing. I was interested in old Dada stuff, and then post-war sound poetry, Henri Chopin, these kind of things. And then I thought, okay, that was the 1950s, 1960s, and now there should be something different. And you were like one of the first persons I saw doing it really in a different way, and in this musical way where there's not really this difference between poetry and music. Is it poetry? Is it music? Can be both. Is it sound poetry? Is it real poetry? And it's very, very open-minded. And also, as you said, in a way, it can be classical or even connect to very magical old poetry. You know, there is not really that big a difference. And there's this one thing you mentioned before. I don't know, was it Freud saying that repetition is death? Because I always understood it the other way around, because I always understood repetition as being alive. Because whenever repetition stops, you are dead, you know, and so repetition is a sign of life. Only things that are alive can repeat. Well, of course, computers can repeat and they're not alive, but it's a sign of life that our cells can repeat and all these kind of things. So for me, it's a sign of life, but maybe for other people, it's a sign of death.
Yeah, it was the same for me till I read that sentence. Then I started to ask myself, maybe it's true, because somehow, especially experienced in a dance floor, when it's, I don't know, 8, 9 a.m. or maybe 8 p.m. but the next day you are in, and then you're like repeating, but you're really out. I mean, and then I started to understand this idea of repetition as a sign of death, because humans we can repeat, but it's, I don't know, it's there's a, I think there's a, when some sound repeats, you repeat a sound a lot, it disappears at the end, because
it's too perfect, of course. Yeah,
yeah,
if it's exactly the same, if it's too exact, then it's the problem.
Yeah, and
so maybe using tape recorders is a good idea then, because they never repeat exactly.
No,
even if they
never.
Try. Yeah.
At the beginning, I hated it because it was like, no, it has to be perfect. But at the end, it was like, no, work with the experimental thing, the experimentation, improvisation. But yeah, this idea of that, I'm not able to explain it because I wrote some text about this idea, and my English is not good enough to explain it. But it's this question, of course. Repetition is related to life, even our heart is always pump pump. But at the same time, when something is repeating itself, can brings you to the death. I mean, because if there's no variation, if there's no other rhythm, just the repetition, or even the idea when you repeat the text. When I perform some of my pieces, that repetition, then it's when I'm out of that rhythm, and I see the body just working. I mean, repeating the poem, and I'm a little bit out of that. It's a kind of little death. So it's but anyway, it's hard to explain, and but there's something related to death in repetition, especially in a dance floor when you are in Berghain in Berlin, and it's Monday 8 a.m. and you got in Thursday afternoon. So it's absolutely, there's repetition is a sign of death when you're on a dance floor after 48 hours.
That's hangover.
Eduardo, hi.
Hi.
Hello. I want just to go back to the video we saw in the beginning, which I loved a lot, and talking with about this idea of repetition, and you just mentioned the heart. I really liked also the aspect of the breathing that you were experimenting in this video piece, which was very present, and it's not this present really in the poetry pieces we saw or we heard, I felt. But there it was very important, and it reminded me also about Heidsieck, because you mentioned also the Vaduz. No? So I really loved this piece, and thanks for your presentations. Right.
Thank you, Heike. Nice to see you. Yeah, now more and more I'm working in with the breathing. So it's something maybe more present in the, so at the my first pieces maybe were dealing with text and repetition. And then I realized how important was breathing, just the air. And I made some improvisations in which I only work with the, like producing sounds with just a small amount of air and yeah, it's well, but it's also the François Dufresne, known a lot of poets, or the Respirations et Breves and Contras, the Bernard Heidsieck, in which he takes like the breathing from other authors and.
Yeah, thanks. It was very nice. Everything.
Yeah. Hi guys, I feel like being in family. That's amazing.
That's the idea.
It's been great.
And since we all, yeah,
I think to make a little comment though. Two comments. First of all, well, I love repetition, and I love exact repetitions. That's why I work with computers, and I think it's very provocative.
You're a hater.
Yeah, I mean, I like that sometimes you expect the computer to get wrong, and it doesn't go wrong. I mean, sometimes it goes wrong, of course. but
big crash.
That coldness of the computer. But I also wanted to go back to another thing you said about this idea of technique or virtuosity when we were talking about like the difference between a poet, a sound poet, or a musician, for example. Some of us here have also studied music, and for example, with Federico, we have talked a lot about it, and in my case, even I first studied music, and later I got into poetry. So it's a very complex relationship. Sometimes it's very liberating to perform and not to be aware of every note and every annotation. I mean, it's great to improvise or to play with the text in more free ways. But I also think maybe it's because of what you said. Sound poetry is a very young discipline. Sound poetry connected to the machine. So it is hard today to define a specific technique, as if you are talking about lyric singing, for example. You have, I mean, you can tell if it's a note, if a note is out of tune or whatever. We don't work usually with those parameters, but we do have some parameters. Or I mean, there's some sound poets I like more than others. There are some performances that I like more than others. So I mean, if you go up on a stage, if you use a microphone, if there are lights, there are a lot of things that you have to deal with, and you can do it in different ways, and maybe more open ways that you're what you expect when you are playing like classical music, as George said, for example. But I think there are parameters. It's not like to put a grade or this is good, this is bad. But how do you deal? And I'm thinking especially that you have been more than 20 years not only performing but also working with different sound poets or musicians or performers. You have seen very different kinds of ways of working. So how do you think about this with more experience, about this technical side? I think that there are some poets or sound poets that are very virtuous. I don't know how you say. I'm thinking, for example, in Festival PM, when we heard Juan Pablo Vila, he's more like that kind of Joan La Barbara, expanded to me. Exactly. So how do you think about all this?
Well, of course, I would agree with the idea that we are bad musicians.
We can be good at some points also.
No, I was reading here the chat. No, but at the same time, I have to say that it has been very important to work organizing festivals and working in production. I mean, in technical productions, because I love. I need to be sure about all the technical questions. So it seems that it's very simple, but no, and some of you know that I can be a pain in the ass because it's like, no, the microphone has to be like this, this, even if at the end it's just a poem. But I think it's something I miss in many poets, this, let's say, the staging. I mean, the more professional way of doing things. I remember, I can explain it, I think, because yeah, it's 2002 or 3, I don't remember. 2002, I went to Paris for Polyphonics. And then I had invited already Sten Hansson for Proposta Festival, but I saw him first at Polyphonics. His performance was awful, really awful. I mean, then I realized, wow, I invited Sten Hansson to my festival, and no, this can't happen at my festival. So I worked with him a little bit, and with a sound engineer, to make it more in a professional way. And I think that his performance at Proposta was better than in Polyphonics, because sometimes, I mean, I think that the own poet has to know how to deal with the technical questions, but otherwise the organizer has to pay attention to it, and it makes a big difference. We were talking about PM Festival PM in Santiago, which is I mean, it's the best you can find in this world, because the sound is perfect, everything is perfect, the audience is perfect, very handsome boys everywhere. So I mean, it's perfect. But in some festivals, you realize that the sound engineer is not interested in what you're doing. The microphones don't work properly, and many other things. But I don't know if it's the answer to your question, but I just realized that we it's already 12 o'clock.
I just wanted to say something before we stop, because that's what when during your conversation just came to my mind, because actually I don't think we are bad musicians. That's not true, because we are not musicians, and not because what we do is even, I think, if we do something that is really abstract and quite related from understandable words or something, it's we speak and we don't sing. And that's a different mode of using your voice, and it can be really very precise. And what you do is very precise, and it's kind of what I enjoy when I see your pieces is the act of speaking, and I experience the act of speaking, and that's something different, and it has its own rules and its own idiosyncrasies, and that's what I am fascinated, is working with spoken voice, even if it's only like voices like for me it's spoken, because sometimes you speak like this. For example, if then it's already sound poetry, and it is in the mode of speaking, and that's what you and maybe all of us are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when I say this about bad musicians, it's just a joke because I think that sometimes it's important to like be funny about you do, but of course, yeah, the main difference, it's exactly what you say, that even if it can make a rhythm, it's a spoken word. It's not music. It's not intended to be a music, so it's maybe for a musician can be enjoyable, but it's not music. Of course, it's text, it's voice, it's I don't know, it's the spoken word, but it's it's something very, very different. But for many people, it's like it's or bad music or bad poetry. Yeah. Anyway, we are on the good side of of everything. I don't know.
We are in peace.
Yeah, I think so.
At least there.
Yeah.
The funny thing is also, if you think about the connection to music, that sometimes it's the new music that will support sound poetry, because they think it's some kind of new music. And even if it's really strange noise, but it's new music. I've been performing at new music festivals, and I was actually quite surprised that they invited me, because I have no connection to music. I have no musical education whatsoever, no voice education, but they were seeing it as new music. I said, oh, okay, why not? And sometimes you can go to a gallery and then it's a sound sculpture, so why not? I think the good thing about us is we can be really open and transgressing all these borders and go from sound poetry all to these different genres. we can say, yes, we're poets. We can also say, yes, we do new music, or yes, we do sound sculpture, or whatever, you know. But
we're always poets.
In the center, I would say. And the
yeah,
voice.
I always say I'm a poet everywhere I am, everywhere I perform. But it's true that we can move to one field to another, and that's something very, yeah, that's perfect. Then I was thinking about Charles Americanian, the American music composer, tech sound artist, and actually he comes from the music, but he was very interested at some point. Well, and then he's still very interested in the repetition, of course, and the spoken word. No, to make music with only the spoken word. So there's a lot of people in between, and a lot of, I mean,
yeah,
I love.
It's great, I think, to explore those juxtaposition as Duke was saying. I remember very much when we went to the festival in Bratislava, organized by Susana, that it combined sound poetry and vocal compositions, expanded vocals, and it was a great opportunity to put this together, to see lots of proximities, or difference. And I like very much, for example, in that in those concerts, I remember hearing the aria by John Cage, or the Berio Sequencia. I don't know if both of them, but those are pieces that you can hear, of course, in a contemporary music festival. But it's great also to hear them and think about them in a sound poetry
device.
Yeah, place, or what's the marco frame. You can notice different things that you couldn't notice, because we are always looking and hearing with frames. I mean, you go to, for example, that sound sculpture you were talking about, Dirk, but if you saw that on a stage or on a gallery, it can be the same piece, but it will work different. The same that we were talking a couple of weeks ago about performances in public spaces, for example. So it's I like those superpositions and mixing. It's very useful, and although we might not be like musicians in the proper way, it's great to know also what they are doing, how they are thinking about problems that are very similar to the ones we have when we perform, when we go on stage, etc.
We don't need definitions, you know. The borders between music and poetry is just like how you define your position into the vibration of volcano's soul. I don't know how to translate that in human language, but
get it.
You know that poetry has that powerful thing of feel together, you know.
Yes.
So what
Joaquim
proposal, Eduard, for us to improvise? We always end up with an improvisation, or is it question, of course.
I mean, you mean like a starting point for the improvisation?
Yeah.
Try to find like a sound that you don't know from your body. I mean, something that you usually don't use, some sound.
Shit sound.
You can start using other devices.
Well-designed and large randomized clinical trials, the best method to establish which interventions are effective, generally safe, and improve public health. Unfortunately, minority of recommendations in clinical practice guidelines are based on evidence from randomized trials. Well-designed and sufficiently large randomized clinical trials are the best method to establish which interventions are effective and generally safe, and thereby improve public health.
Wir finden eine lyrische in kurdischen Zaubersprüchen, Gebeten und Riten, die ich aber schrittweise
Public health. public health. Unfortunately, a minority of recommendations in clinical practice guidelines are based on evidence from randomized trials. Randomized trials. Randomized trials.
Ein Maximum. Mit einem Mitteln ausdrücken. Den. Ideen. Ein Maximum. Ideen. Mit einem Minimum an Mitteln. Minimum an Mitteln aus. Der Minimum an Mitteln ausdrücken. Ein Maximum an Ideen.
Randomized trials. Why are clinical trials needed? Randomized trials. That is the type of evidence needed to have confidence in the results.
Mit einem Maximum.
Well designed and sufficiently large randomized clinical trials are the best method. to establish the type of evidence needed to have confidence in the results. Public health. Randomized trials. Is the type of evidence needed to have confidence in the results. Although trials provide evidence needed to have confidence in the results, the essential foundation of evidence. Much has been written about
Maximum an Ideen, die ein Minimum an Mitteln ausdrücken.
bad musicians. A clinical trial can determine the incidence of adverse effects or complications. The consequences of not conducting appropriate clinical trials at the proper time can be both serious and costly. much has been written about
dass sich nicht um Gattungsgrenzen und auch nicht um Sprachgrenzen schert. Gänzlich unakademischer Zugang. randomized trials.
Destroyers are needed for corroborating evidence results. For instance, why are our trials randomized public health? Public health. Public health. Public health.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I'm silencing everyone. I'm the dictator.
our bed, at least in Europe, our bed is waiting.
DJ Dictator.
Yes. I have a very exciting lockdown day tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh. It's been a week now here. 2 weeks.
100.
It's been forever here.
Oh yeah, forever. Forever.
Wow. Thank you. So, we're here now.
This is what we need.
This is the literature of the time.
Yeah.
Not poetry.
Yeah.
Martín, con ese micro no cambia el micro, no se te oye bien.
Es una cuchara. It's a spoon.
Hello.
I see.
I see. Well, we start the tour, the world tour extended cachondeo, because I think the most important work of Escoffet in those moments of trance poetry, between the concentration and inspiration and freedom and exactitude, on that different moment, the extended cachondeo is a really way when the people after they make the performance, or they've been paid. I don't know. Like I remember, like reading tarot cards with Pamela Seda in cachondeo. At the day we invented, and at that night we invented extended cachondeo. Pamela Seda, yeah. And Eduard invented the extended cachondeo, and he keeps the extended cachondeo. It's like a kind of I don't know. Dreams, you can go to cachondeo. You don't know what to do when you are dreaming. You're just thinking about Eduard Escoffet and the after extended cachondeo. And then now, Felipe, I propose we stop the recording, and now we start the extended cachondeo.
I have to leave, guys.
Felipe is already started the extended cachondeo.
I have to go now to have cook dinner for the kids. Excellent, Eduard. Fantastic.
I'm very happy to be with you all. You're Martin, Felipe, who's there, Joaquim, Andres, I don't see you, but you're there, Gerard. Gerard, you didn't say a word.
book.
Oh, not yet.
Andres keeps publishing poetry books.
Wow.
Good.
All of them great, of course.
The Enemy Within.
Yeah, The Enemy Within, exactly. Well, it was great seeing you guys. Next week, we have two wonderful guests, Delight Lab, a Chilean
Great.
brother and sister, probably some of the most famous artists in Chile right now. They are also poets and musicians, so it will be great to have them here. And 2 weeks more, we will have the final chapter of this cycle because we are completing exactly 1 year. So some surprises for that day.
Well, thank you so much for organizing that.
No,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't say too much because we will have to organize the next cycle. So we are giving it to you.
Who continue the extended cachondeo, you or me?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I lead now. Bye-bye, yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Chao. Felipe, yo déjame grabando porque
Stop recording and then the final.
Stop recording, pero extended cachondeo ahora.